Back here on HQ Spotlight, Ryan Wilson, he just cannot get a break, man. We're just working him overtime, even after he probably hasn't slept in weeks. These are his top 10 NFL draft class rankings. The Bills coming in at number 1, followed by the Titans. We have the Raiders, the Falcons, the Niners rounding out the top 5. Also, my Jags falling out at 6. Haley, your Cowboys right there at 7.
Deep tease here. We're going to do Jacqueline and I's sports power rankings later. Stick around to see where the Jags and the Cowboys land on our list.
That is our personal lifetime teams across all sports. So, yeah, how is that for a deep tease? Let's welcome in Ryan Wilson to go through the rankings. Ryan, always good to see you. The Bills coming out on top. We know they needed a corner, a young edge, an inside player for their defense, and they get all of that in those first 4 rounds. Why are the Bills coming in at number 1 for this draft class that we saw here?
Hey, Jacqueline, good to see you. And forget about what they did in free agency and having Josh Allen. They just hit home run after home run in this draft. You talk about the corner, Maxwell Harrison, the guy to the bottom of the first round. He had some mid-first round grades with the way he played at Kentucky. And one of my favorite picks, they went defensive line in rounds 2, 3, and 4. Deion Walker, 6'7", 331. Over the summer coming into 2024, Jacqueline, he had top 15 potential. He battled injuries, so that's a huge reason why he fell to the 4th round. But if they can get him right on that defensive line room, and it's going to be a huge problem for the rest of the AFC East. And again, they did this draft with the understanding that Josh Allen, you got to carry the offense. We're just going to crush it with these picks in the first 5 rounds on defense. They finally got a tight end in round 5 as well, Jackson Hawes. He's like the best blocking tight end in this class, so very little offensive productivity expectations for him as well. It is hard not to love what Brandon Beane has done. And this feels like, Haley, Haley, hi, Haley, Jacqueline, this feels like
Ryan.
the opportunity for the Bills to get over the hump with the Chiefs, but we say that every summer. So maybe this is the time they can get past Kansas City in January.
I thought he was going to say something about the Cowboys.
And
I was like,
how are the Cowboys involved, and where do they line up with the Bills being number 1 here? Was there going to be some positive outlook for the Cowboys? False alarm, false alarm.
I hope so, Ryan.
All right, let's go to the Jags because, as you mentioned, Ryan, I was going absolutely bonkers on
Confirmed.
X. Texting everybody that I knew, just in all caps, screaming. Duval is very excited because of the aggressiveness that we saw in the draft from Jacksonville, right? That's not something that we've typically seen, and this is a franchise that, as we've talked about, has picked in the top 5 more times than we want to admit. But still, Ryan, they're outside of your top 5 in terms of this class, despite the Travis Hunter of it all. Why is that?
Hey, Jacqueline, so producer Boney set me up. He made these sort of the rankings when, in fact, power rankings, they're grades. Like, I gave the Jacksonville Jaguars an A. I did give the Bills a B+, but everyone almost got an A except till we get to the end of the segment, and we'll understand why in a moment. But nothing more pure than a Jacqueline D'Agostino tweet of her as a young fan with full of hope and expectations, and finally her dreams are coming true in 2025 with James Gladstone, who's probably around that same age when he sent that tweet out, going up to get Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter, Caleb Ransall ran into the 4.3s at his combine and pro day at Tulane. He's going to play in the slot. They went and got Wyatt Milam in round 3. He's going to start immediately inside at guard. They got 2 running backs, Michelle Tootin out of Virginia Tech, who ran into the 4.3s, and then my guy LaQuint Allen out of Syracuse with their very last pick in round 7. Both those guys are going to probably make the team and contribute early on. Just James Gladstone might be 34 years old, but credit to that guy for saying, you know what, I come from the less need school of drafting or not drafting players. I'm willing to package some picks to get the best player in this draft, and Travis Hunter. Asterisk, if that makes Jacqueline D'Agostino's weekend even better. Jacksonville Jaguars are relevant again. Here we go.
We've seen it time and time again, Ryan, because I'm thinking of like Blake Bortles, 2017. We had a little bit of hope there. Then 2022 with the infamous comeback against Herbert and all that stuff with my boy T-Law. And now I feel like we've had some down years, but we're slowly coming back. Let's go to the Commanders, shall we? Because I could talk Jags all day with you. You can never get enough O-linemen, and they certainly address that when you have this young quarterback of the future in Jaden Daniels. But they come in at number 15 for you. How could it have been better, in your opinion, Ryan?
Yeah, so again, producer Boney with the power rankings headlines undersells the point that I did give him an A. but they only had 5 picks. So you see them there. Josh Connolly Jr. is not a day one starter. He's a developmental guy with huge upside in terms of athleticism. Maybe there's an opportunity for him to kick inside the guard early on in his career, maybe even rookie season. Sam Cosby's coming off the ACL. We'll see there. I love the Trey Amos pick at 61 there. He had first-round talent and first-round buzz. He's long, physical, has ball skills. Jalen Lane is a little slot receiver with some juice, and he's going to give them one more player at Jaden Daniels' exposure, And then finally, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Only played 1 game last year for the University of Arizona. Very low mileage, very twitched up running back who's going to have an opportunity not only to make the team, but get some carries. So not a ton of picks. They did address some needs, and I gave them an A, as you see there. It's just they were right in the middle. Not bad, though. I mean, that team, by the way, Jacqueline, is the blueprint for the Jacksonville Jaguars going forward. So I would imagine you would be happy with that sort of progress a year from now.
Absolutely, I would. And we just want to put this out there as well. So we did grades with Pete, right? He gave out, I think, 1A when it came to, we did it by teams, right? So he gave out 1A on the NFC side and then only 2 on the AFC. So in this bell curve where Ryan Wilson is making said rankings, there's a lot more A's. So even though 15 might sound like we need some improvements here, it's ultimately still an A. So that brings us to the Eagles in terms of the power rankings, number 21. But in terms of the grade, Ryan, it is still an A-. And we always talk about, you know, Howie Roseman, he always gets these steals in the draft. But how is it so that, you know, we're here once again talking about the defending champs getting an A- when we're looking at their draft picks for 2025?
Yeah, and if we're being honest, this should probably have been another A as the professor who only gives out A's. They had so many picks that I started dinging them with some of the picks they took later in the draft. But the picks at the top are grand slams. Jahad Campbell at 31 is stealing. He's going to be the day one starter almost certainly next to Zach Bond at the linebacker position. Andrew Makuba was my safety 3, undersized but plays with his hair on fire and incredibly smart. Smile Monday at 161 to get another off-ball linebacker with insane athleticism out of Georgia who slipped a little bit. And I would I can't forget my guy, Jacqueline, Kyle McCord out of Syracuse, going in round 6. I thought he might go a few rounds higher. They have a deep quarterback room behind Jalen Hurts, so we'll see what their plans are with those guys. DTR was just traded for, but I love that pick as well. And you mentioned Howie Roseman. He has been known to draft guys, develop guys, and then flip guys for higher draft picks than what he used to get them. So I suspect that will be the case with some of these names we saw here today.
Ryan, my younger brother, as you know, my family is from West Mifflin in Pennsylvania, and he is also a Steelers fan. So he had his fingers crossed that Kyle McCord was going to somehow make his way to Western PA. Not necessarily the case, but nevertheless found his way on a great team in the Eagles. So whether we want to look at the rankings, whether we want to look at the grades, being number 31, if you're the Browns, it's not great. So the Bengals are last with a C. So that's the floor here, with the ceiling, of course, being an A+. But the Browns still a C+ here, number 31 out of 32. And they gave up quite the haul in that trade with Jacksonville, so the Jags could trade up and get Travis Hunter, right? They take Mason Graham at that number 5 slot. So you'd think if you're giving up that much, then the expectation would be, hey, they can kind of rebuild and reload here. But why the C+ regardless of the haul that they did receive and the moves that they made because of that?
Yeah, exactly. They got the Jaguars' 2026 first-round pick. The package of picks they got after the number 5 pick from Jacksonville, they used to take 2 running backs. And that's fine. You do need running backs. Quinshon Judkins, I wouldn't have taken him that high, but other teams felt differently, clearly. 126 at Dylan Sampson, he's a good player at that range. Fair. Harold Fannin Jr., home run pick. Carson Schlesinger, the linebacker, I don't mind that pick as well. But you take Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round, which is a stretch. There were some teams that had him undraftable. Great player, just undersized. And then 2 rounds later, you come back and get Shedeur Sanders, and we've talked that conversation to death 2 times now, it feels like. So what was the thought process going into the draft, and what happened Friday night that changed your mind about the quarterbacks and doubling up? Typically, you'll take a quarterback like in the 1st round and maybe later on day 3 as a developmental player. It's unclear who the starter is going to be, and it just feels like more confusion than Cleveland, even though they got off to a great start on day 1, got those draft picks, and now we're left wondering, okay, who's the quarterback now that we're through the draft? Because it's still unclear.
Yeah, it's a very crowded QB room, as we talked about, with Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Deshaun Watson, Dylan Gabriel, and, of course, Shedeur Sanders. Ryan, we certainly appreciated going through.
Oh, there it is.
All right.
There it
So
is.
if you were confused at the top of this segment, this is what I tweeted because again, I think I'm like 5 years old.
What is this painting on your face?
I don't know. I think I came from a carnival or something, and someone tried to paint a dolphin on my face. They should probably be fired and not be doing that because I don't know what that looks like. But the throwback Jags logo, it should be brought back permanently. It is amazing. And Ryan, I'm glad this tweet or whatever, this post on X was
I tried
able
to get
make
them to put this one.
Oh,
too,
my
the one
brother.
throwing
Yeah.
Your brother, yeah.
Head over to @CheckDiog on X. There's more family photos of my fam dressed in Jacksonville Jaguars clothes at the at games back in the 90s. You can hear Ryan Wilson on With the First Pick, our NFL Draft podcast alongside Rand Carthon. You can download, follow, listen. They're diving deeper into the NFL Draft class rankings in the latest episode. You can scan right now by watching that QR code. And if you want to, cheer on the Jags and get more Jags content, go to my X account.
I want to know where I can get that dolphin face painting on my face.
Do you want it?
Yeah, I also wanted this game to be over before it even started.
Oh my God, you
I
and
think
all
the
of
Cavs
Miami
just scored again. Ashley Nicole Moss going to join us on the other side to talk about this disaster and what's ahead in the playoffs tonight.